Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Identity Library. My name is Veronica Becher and today I'm with Loridana Foksha.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, today the topic is being in your 20s and finding your own identity while being in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a topic that has nothing to do with international relationships, but I felt like it's something that people sometimes forget to talk about or sometimes talk too much about, honestly. It goes both ways. But since we are both, you just entered your 20s and I'm kind of going through them. Just like a first question, maybe of the day. Give me a fun fact about you. Self.
I can hold my eyes open for a really long time. I think my record was 8 minutes, but I was also wearing contacts, so I was kind of cheating.
Okay, this is crazy.
You said fun fact. It's a very big part of my identity.
So if anyone is questioning their ability to be in their 20s, well, it's okay. Someone is trying to hold their eyes open for 8 minutes. Never get into staring.
I'm not going to close my eyes in this entire episode.
Okay, no, we're not doing that.
Never mind.
Yeah, no staring.
I'm going to forget.
So, my question is, why? Okay, first of all, how do you feel being in your 20s in general? Like entering now a new chapter of your life.
I feel really good, honestly.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is like not a lot. I think my birthday was kind of freaking out almost, but a lot of changes have happened since my birthday, which was only like a few months ago, right? I feel really good, especially where I'm going to go now, or where I think when this episode comes out, where I am at the moment. But I'm excited because I have plans, and I am also very open to any opportunity that comes by.
How do you feel about the fact that you don't know what you want to do with your career, that it's such a struggle? How do you find your own identity in being a 20-year-old or 21-year-old girl, young woman, young lady?
I think when I was younger, I to this day, I think I feel 17, or I feel like a child still, especially compared to other people. I think one thing about this age is you compare yourself to people a lot. It's something I've kind of tried to stop doing because I understand that everyone is on their own course. I remember when I was younger and when I was teens, I felt like a child still because I didn't have enough, like a lot of the responsibilities or experiences other people have had. And I think going into my 20s where I now have the ability and the freedom to, I find myself rushing it almost, living by myself, going to Spain and, etc. So I think
you just feel like you have to do so many things because you're in your 20s, like there's a pressure on your shoulder.
Yeah, you see all these people, like the Olympics just happened, or they're happening right now, and there's like 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds doing the Olympics, and I'm like, what am I doing? I know this one person who, he's like a model from my high school, and he went to Vogue Thailand, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing, But I think about, I am doing things. I'm in college. I'm studying abroad. I'm doing things, and I'm on my own path. So I think I'm being very gentle with myself, which is, I think it's important for everybody to do, but also cautious, like, this is my path. This is the steps that I'm taking, which is different than everybody else. And, I'm a different person than everybody else, and I'm allowed to kind of take the steps that I need, which can be different for everybody else. Mm-hmm. Everybody else. I keep saying that word.
How do you feel about, I feel like especially having so many different hobbies in your 20s and realizing you don't really have the time, but then seeing people
Oh my
getting
gosh.
married,
Yeah.
having kids, you enter these like unknown 20s where people just are ahead of you, others are not even
Yeah.
figuring out their life. Sometimes you meet someone and you're like, oh, maybe I should date this person. And then this person feels like they are 15, and others feel like they already lived half their life and they have so much, so many experiences on their shoulders, and it's just a completely different person that you're like standing across of.
Yeah.
And how do you normalize of being just normal?
Whoa. That's a crazy question. How do you normalize being normal?
Yeah. Like being someone who just normal, like doesn't do such a crazy things,
Yeah.
has so many
Well,
hobbies.
I also think that
Yeah.
I'm not normal in a sense because I'm going to Spain for 2 years, and that's not like a very direct path compared to like any other student here in America specifically. I think for the maybe I can date myself back like for the past 2 years. I mean, even so, because you mentioned like I do have a lot of hobbies. I do find myself having a lot of things, and one thing you touched on is time. I feel like in my 20s, I don't have enough time to do anything anymore. And I see all these people doing so many crazy things with their life. And I'm like, I need to sleep a normal amount of time and like make myself food 3 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
And I feel like adulting, a lot of it is like a lot of time is taken away from you just because you need to function and you need to exist and live.
But then also to like kind of, follow up, I feel like sometimes the life takes you into a direction that you don't want to walk towards.
Yes.
And I feel like you don't have the control of actually controlling your whole life in your own life. And the routine that you have daily through exams, through work, through whatever it is, family matters. You don't really find enough time for yourself. You don't feel like you can actually control and decide what you want to do. If you want to read a book or draw, you need to set priorities.
And the time that you do have, you feel like is so short that you don't have enough time to like complete a project or to complete doing something, because I would recognize like I'd be at home for 2 hours and like I have nothing to do, and so I bed rot because I know that I need to do something else, which might also be ADHD, which is we can also talk about as a very big part of my identity is my ADHD or ADD, whatever. Yeah, but with time, I feel like I see all these people and they, at this age, like I know some people who are starting families at my age, and it's freaking me out because I'm like, I myself still feel like a child. How are you able to grow when you already identify yourself as a mother, and I really truly respect people who want that life for them, that family life, and I think that's like a good goal to have, especially in a society where sometimes it's frowned upon. I think it's a good goal to have, but at this age for myself, like I try to envision myself having kids at this age when like most people are having, well, not most, but like some people I know are having kids or like having families, and I'm like, how are they doing this?
How can they,
how do they have the time? Yeah.
To have like a life. Do you think in your 20s, kind of like steering in a different direction, you have to have aspirations? It's something we talked about literally these past weeks, and I was like, well, sometimes I meet people and they have no aspirations, no goals in life, like the opposite of having too many goals.
Oh my gosh.
Feeling like you don't want to be normal, or you want to be normal, but you have so many things you want to accomplish. You're doing so many things because you're trying to keep up, but also maybe you just want a lot of things in life, and you feel like your 20s kind of like strangle you towards a certain direction where you have to go.
And then there's some people who are kind of floating.
Yeah, completely the opposite.
Passively, yeah. And that is kind of astonishing to me because, I grew up wanting like a life with so much in it, and then there's people who are like, I don't really care where I'm going, I'll just get a job and like make sure I'm feeding myself, putting a roof over my head, which like I understand, like for a lot of people, like for my mom example, that she was constantly on survival mode. That's what a lot of people are doing right now, and I'm very privileged and grateful that like I was able to grow up and have dreams and aspirations of my own. But for some people, they're privileged enough and they have enough, I guess, they have the room in their life to have those aspirations, and they don't. And it's kind of like, what? You don't have a sudden urge to go out and explore and to meet new people and to travel and to do every single school. Like I have a list on my phone of skills that I want to do in my life.
Oh my gosh.
They range from snowboarding to cooking to
meet random grandmas in Spain and talk with them about tradition. Oh my gosh.
To, I mean, not a skill, but like at one point go to jail is in there.
Okay, no, we should not say that out loud on a podcast. This is, don't worry, she's not trying to like.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna do anything illegal. No.
Oh my gosh, this is like so inappropriate.
It's just a crazy thought, but I want to have so many skills under my belt, and I want to be able to do and experiences, but like skills, things. Let's read them. We can go through them.
It just reminds me of these vision board nights that we decided to do, because I was like, I really want to give it a try. And 3 artistic people actually, including Max, came together, and we were all like creating vision boards and just
for the
writing,
new year,
and just writing down things that we wanted to accomplish in our life. And it's so astonishing to me how different people approach these things. Like Max just had a whole like list of things, like a whole plan. It's like written out
like step by step.
Yeah, step by step.
And for me, I'm like, I want to do this at one point in my life. I don't really know when, but at one point in my life, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Do you think one of the other is better? It reminds me of like,
no.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the person. And for someone like Max who wants to be a doctor, I feel like you have to plan that out, in order to have a certain aspiration that is such a big goal. It has to break it down, planned out and broken down. But at the same time, I also feel like life can just throw you for a loophole whenever it wants to, and
you need to be prepared
or not prepared, but you need to, when it comes, you need to be a little bit more okay with it. With, maybe at some points I need to go with the flow because this sudden choice just sprung up in my life, and I need to figure out, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Or your values or beliefs can change, or you can just change as a person altogether. Like in high school, I thought I was going to do biomedical engineering, and here I am going to Spain for business administration.
Yeah, like it's different. It's like it reminds me of when people look for a relationship partner, and they're like, by 25, I want to have 3 kids, and by 22, I'm gonna be already married.
Yeah,
and then I have a house when I'm 30, and so on.
Like you don't know that for certain.
And then they realize they're like 25, and they're like, initially I wanted to have already a partner, but I don't really have the person. And the person that you need comes into your life much later in life.
Yeah.
Or also like, the thing I always tell you, if there's no door in front of you, take the window, and maybe you will enjoy jumping out of the window more than actually taking the door.
Yeah, I think what's important for people is you can plan the things that you need to control, and what you can't control, you need to understand it's like a go with the flow situation in the moment, in the spur of the moment. It's something that you have to like make that choice right then and there, or a choice just sprung up on you that you thought you would never have to make that specific decision. And I think it's important to plan your future, but also be okay with things changing.
I have another question while you look for your list.
Oh, wait, when do I say my list?
Well, you can give me like your top 5.
My top 5? I have so many.
Or like your top 5
new ones. by the way.
Okay, what are
I want to
your-
go to my new ones. I want to go to the Olympics.
Oh my gosh.
I think I can manage with breakdancing. I think I want to learn. Oh, I need to add breakdancing. Breakdancing.
This is when you have really random.
Yeah. Well, dance is on there, but like breakdancing is very specific. Maybe that's like a subsection of dance.
Yeah.
Because I have dance, pottery, painting, and languages, and I feel like I need a subsection for that. We can just say them all. Cook. Okay, cook and chef are on there.
Okay.
Different things. One, cook with grandmas, chef, and restaurant. Cook, bartend, barista, surf, cut men's hair, wine, martial arts, painting, pottery, dance, chef, languages, skinny dipping.
Skinny dipping goes crazy.
Go to jail. Snowboard,
gosh.
skateboard, tattoo, math, Olympics, breakdancing.
This is
And
fantastic.
I just keep on adding.
I have, well,
Yep.
so I think we should normalize if someone doesn't have such a long list, but I do have also a long list of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we're just both crazy, I guess. But then if we're talking about dancing, I have two last questions left.
Yeah.
And one is, do you think, especially for people in the dancing field, that
Also, by the way,
yeah.
like, I'm not professionally taught at all. I am self-taught, and I'm not saying that, like, I'm a great dancer.
She's a fantastic dancer. You should see her in a cypher.
I'm a freestyler, more say.
Yeah.
I'm not, like, I'm okay. I'm getting better with choreography. I need to take more dance classes, obviously, but I started really dancing in college.
Just get her like a good song, an apartment called Veronica's Apartment, and she's just gonna dance
I can
around.
bust it down.
Oh my gosh. So basically,
Yep.
do you think
Yeah.
in your 20s, since we're talking about one little part of 20s, and you can talk about for hours about this topic, do you think there's an age for dancers?
No.
Okay.
No.
Why?
Um,
You know how people say in ballet, like, you're too young. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
start your career a certain time, you're like, oh,
I
it's
think
over.
they say that because, I mean, as you grow old, your joints start, like, becoming stiff and you can't move as well. But I think if you, like, continue to push your body to the limits, in, like, a very healthy way, I think you can never stop dancing. And even if it's, like, a little jig, even if it's, like, something small that you can do, I don't think that dancing should be limited to age, per
Yep.
se.
It reminds me of my mom,
Yeah.
actually. When I was younger, I would not go. This is strange, but I would go to parties with my mom, and people
That's
assumed that
crazy.
she was my sister. And well, because my mom looked really young during that
Yeah.
time, and we still have 20 years, like, no, 30. We have
What's
30.
your mom's name?
We have 30 years. Julia.
Shout out to Julia.
Shout
I
out
love
to
you,
Julia.
Julia.
She was dancing, and my mom still dances to this point. And I know that my grandma was dancing to the moment, like, before she died, unfortunately.
R.I.P. Grandma.
Yeah,
I love you,
but
Grandma.
yeah, and then I feel like dancing is just, it shouldn't be limited to an age. So stop stressing yourself out that if you're in your 20s not a professional dancer,
That you can't start dancing. You can always
Yes,
start dancing.
you just find a different industry. And if there isn't an industry, I cannot speak, industry, then find and create your own. And that's something.
And if you have nowhere to dance in your room alone, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's how I think why I became so good at freestyling. I danced alone in my room most of the time with my lights off because my mom couldn't know that I wasn't sleeping. It would be 12 and midnight and I'd
I would
be
do the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
had just earbuds in my ears and I'd just be
You're
dancing.
like, super
And then, but like
energetic.
I'd also have to take another shower right after because I'm like sweating. I'm like I can't go to bed
In-
anymore with all this sweat, and I'd just be like up
Yeah.
for hours dancing when I
Well,
was younger.
Last question for your 20s.
My 20s.
Do you believe in destiny? Like, do you believe that
Mm,
if you don't take the right steps now, you eventually still will end up where you need to end up? Or is it something like you should actually use your 20s to figure it out? Enjoy, of course, the freedom of being independent and also like the unknown, you know? But also, like, do you think we are the ones controlling it, or it's something else that will control it for us?
I always say it's a mix of both. I think everyone is set out to do something specific. Like everyone is set out to, I think, meet maybe one person or like do something in their life, whether it's a skill or like an experience, but I wouldn't say your destiny is set in stone. I come from a religious background. I'm a Christian, and in my religion, we have free will, and we can choose a lot of things that we want to do with our future. And which is another part of my identity, is that I'm religious, so, but we have free will, and I can choose what I want to do in my life, but there's certain moments, I think, in my life, my past and in my future, where I was like meant to do something, which was either part of my personality or something that was instilled in me or something that I was meant to learn growing up.
Do you believe that your ancestors are like guiding you somewhere? I know it's not something you see in like in churches, but I was like reading it up and I'm like, oh, that's like an interesting thought process of like, because in Russian Orthodox people believe in like you have your little angel that like looks over you and takes care of you and kind of like guides you into through life. And something I know that I think is really specific to Russian Orthodox, but
yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up Russian Orthodox.
Yeah, and I did. And so that just a big difference. It just, I wouldn't say there's a destiny, but I feel like there might be a destiny, like an end point of life, but there are a million different options of getting there. And maybe like to stimulate your thought process that has nothing to do right now with your 20s and identity.
Yeah.
But you know these moments when you have a déjà vu moment? I've been asking this question so many times with people, and I'm like, you know, when you believe in destiny and how do you find yourself as a person in your 20s, and you're like, oh, did I experience this before? And I was thinking of like, just imagine there's a multiverse, and in a different multi-universe, you just have these déjà vu moments because they align. Like if you don't really have a destiny, but you have somewhere in a different lifetime that is going parallel to your current one,
and you've made all these different choices. Yes. You made the opposite ones, but at some point you end up at the same spot, and you can diverge from that spot.
Yes. Yeah. And this is why déjà vu moments happen. It's kind
that is an interesting concept, and I'm here for it. I like that a lot.
Think of like, you know how I named my podcast Identity Library, but I feel like I love this book called Midnight Library, which has nothing to do.
Which you introduced me to.
Yes.
Highly recommend that book.
Just like to not spoil for people that want to read it. It's a wonderful book. I didn't like it first, but I liked it in the end.
I think I read it in like 2 days.
Yes, she read it in one day. This is what, you know, final.
She gave me that book for Christmas.
Yeah, no, doing finals, and it's just like you were reading.
No, I read it during Christmas.
You were reading it while taking exams.
Yeah.
Because I
had an exam like the next day, and I was like procrastinating, studying, and I was like, let me read this book.
And yeah, basically the main character, she dreams of so many different options she would have and so many different outcomes.
And she regrets so many choices in her life. Like, why didn't she do this? Why didn't she pursue that?
And I was thinking of, it's a really spiritual opinion and a really like something you see like in really spiritual, like less religious but more spiritual mindsets, that if you have these like multi-universes and there's so many of them, that similar to this book where she wants to be a swimmer, an Olympic swimmer, she wants to be a
pop star,
like
a rock star. Yeah,
she wants to be going to like the with National Geographic to be like a researcher in
or
Antarctica.
A professor.
Yes, there's so many lines, and kind of going back to the 20s, I think it's the same. In your 20s specifically, you have so many versions of yourself that are existing.
Because you have so many choices.
Yes.
You've just entered a new stage of your life where you're not, I guess, under your parents anymore, and and now you have to make these choices for the rest of your life because so much more to go.
But if you have these déjà vu moments where things connect in 1 second, what if you can technically tap into one of the other multi-universes?
Whoa.
What if the current...
Are we getting into like
Yes.
theories now. Oh
Yes.
my god.
But can you imagine you're like running this one line, and the moment you have a deja vu moment, you can switch technically to a different multi-universe. And the moment you can, of course, it's not going to happen in one day, but that's where you're like planning in your goal setting. Like, look, shout us to Max, comes into place where you think about a goal that you really want to achieve and realize that your 20s are
this is
so
philosophical.
Yes, I know. I'm here for it.
Loving this.
And you switch, but you work towards this other goal. And that means there are so many versions of you, so many aspects of you that can come out at any time of the, in your lifetime, that specifically your 20s, because they're so unset in stone, you can switch later on and actually become someone else. Maybe not, you can't just become someone who's already, a little bit more realistic speaking. You can't just randomly be like an Olympic swimmer,
completely different person
in a year.
And it could also be small choices
yes
too.
But small choices, and so realizing that you can actually control your life. And sometimes if you sacrifice something for once, that doesn't mean that you're sacrificing it for a whole 10 years. Think about, is it something short-term or is it something long-term? If it's long-term but it leads you to a certain goal that is important, well, do it. But if you realize it's something that you will suffer for the next 20 years and it's not worth it, why are you continuing doing that?
I think also based off of these choices, you give yourself more or less, quote unquote, what you've been saying, multi-dimensions. You give yourself more or less dimensions based off of the choices that you make. And I think as you go through them in life, they dwindle down until you die, basically. And you just have like your entire life. And that like just becomes that set life that you've lived.
This reminds me so much of people that are like 90 years old and go to college. Return to college, or they had their whole career and then they stop abruptly and go to China to study a language. I think it just shows you that it's your own life, your own choice, your own, like, to find yourself as a process, but maybe there isn't one identity in this. Again, really philosophical. You just brought me to this thought.
Love it.
Maybe you're not really one identity as a person, the thing that we imagine to be, but we're such an onion. We're such an onion that there's so many layers to us that our identity has so many multi-universes connecting in one person, that if we really wanted to and we put yourself to like having a better lifestyle, working out, doing something else, finishing a new art piece, you can actually do it if you get into the right mindset and attract the right things.
I also think what's important to realize in this state of moment is you're constantly going to be changing, but you yourself at this moment in time are already so many different layers of person. And I think you can always try to find yourself. And this is also what I think I've been meaning to tell you personally, Veronica, is that this entire summer I've just been very direct with you, and like you specifically.
I'm like specifically like all my directness, my German directness is
rubbing off of me.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Is that, and this can also apply for anyone like who's trying to find themselves. And I've also spent a big portion of my life trying to find myself and who I was. And I would consistently analyze my personality and who I wanted to be. And of course, you can have that like set goal of who you want to be. But I think it's also very important in this moment in time to accept yourself. And to not only, you don't need to find yourself, but be okay with who you are right now. And know that like, okay, changes are going to come and changes are going to grow. But in this moment, I can accept myself and who I am. And I can just be okay with the choices that I've made and where I am right now in my life. I think that's important to realize.
I think just mic drop, period. I think that was a good ending for like one mini
Love
chapter.
yourself. Be who you are.
It's more difficult than it seems like.
It is. Oh, yeah.
Like people say love yourself.
It's
or
cliche
like,
for a reason.
Let go of something. And you're like, how do I let go of something? Because that's not how it works. It's just not, you can't just randomly erase a chapter in your life or erase a trait that you have in something you would just carry with you But I feel like realizing that we all are in the same boat and there's so many thousand millions of people going through the same things as you are makes you feel maybe more empowered. And maybe think about this way. Maybe in a different multi-universe, in a different universe, there's a different you that has a harder life or an easier life. But in the end of the day, you all end up in the same spot in life.
That's a beautiful end note.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I hope you have something to think about, and if you have any random thoughts, and, feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you, Laura, for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.